Hello, once again, this is Brother Teacher with some words of encouragement. As we go through this COVID 19 and or coronavirus pandemic, I want to encourage all of you that decided to stop by and watch my video for this moment in time. I'm encouraging myself at the same time because this situation affects all of us in some way or another, directly or indirectly. And it is not a good feeling. It is not uh, comforting to know that you are being inhibited as a human being, a man, woman, and a child. You are being uh, drastically, in many instances, uh, inconvenienced as it relates to conducting your life in a wholesome way. And you feel as though not some, but almost virtually all of your freedoms have been taken away from you. Now, there are some that continue to work through this situation as close to normalcy as possible, but it is still not without challenge. It is complicated in many instances. It feels almost impossible in other circumstances, but we are all touched by this situation again in some way or another. But I want to, as your fellow brother and fellow man, I want to say that even though we are here, and this at the present time is a form of a new reality, as they say, try to be as positive as you possibly can and try to have hope and faith that we won't have to endure this for a longer, much longer period of time. I believe that it's going to be longer than a couple months. I believe that it's highly possible that it could be at the end of the year before we see any freedom to go back to our jobs and our lives and our schooling as we once did on a regular basis, some form of frequency. Now, while we are where we are again, try to encourage your family, your friends, that we're going to make it okay. I know it's difficult for some, just depending on what your background is, your measure of faith, if you will, your prior teaching as you were being raised as a child up into adulthood. Some people don't have faith that it's going to get better. Some people believe that it's going to get just extremely worse. But the outcome, oftentimes, as we go through this, is very much dependent upon us and how we respond to the situation, how well we prepare and have prepared for this. We know that we're in it. It's really that simple. There are people still dying in various states, in various other countries. That's a reality. Now, to see your loved ones and your close friends pass away as a result of anything can be very challenging in and of itself, and even horrific as it relates to this particular pandemic, as they call it. But if we're here, those of us that still have a reasonable portion of health and strength, we should try to reach down and pull somebody up out of the muck and the mire of depression, and to some degree, even oppression. So hang in there, ladies and gentlemen, and children. Try to be strong. Try to be as close as you possibly can to your family and even your neighbors, those that you know and don't know. Now, I understand the statement I just made about be close to. Some people are going to take that very literal and say, well, what about the 6 foot distance or what have you? I'm sure that those of us that have a little bit of common sense can exercise it accordingly. I just want to read off some occupations that came to my mind that sometimes we don't really consider, uh, who have been affected in a very traumatic way. And not just occupations, but also events. It is deeper than some of us can even imagine, but it depends on where you find yourself uh, and what station of life you're in. There are people who don't get out, who are retired maybe and on disability and don't really travel around or have not before this COVID-19 issue became a reality to all of us. So I just want to tell you of some things that, and some occupations and some activities that we probably haven't thought about. It seems like as the days unfold and they pass by, you begin to see a more realistic picture of what's the impact of this pandemic. And I begin restaurants. I know waiters and waitresses that have worked at restaurants that have actually lost their jobs. The dining rooms, of course, in all, if not most, restaurants have been closed. Some will allow people to come in and order out, and they can leave out the building. Some have closed their doors, period, and they're only using the drive-through service. Car washes. I know people who work at the car wash. Now they have certain restrictions with car washes. Some people don't even go to the car wash at all. But some of the restrictions at the car wash is that the people are demanded or it's suggested to them to stay in their vehicle from the beginning to the end of the car wash process. But that business has slowed down substantially. Bars, bartenders, and barmaids have lost their jobs. They say laid off, but many jobs that say laid off, in most instances, you really just have lost your job, period. Probably forever. Clothing stores. I have a friend that owns a clothing store personally. He can't open his business up because it's not considered essential. Furniture stores. I have friends who have furniture stores. They are not allowed to open up their business. Hair supply stores. I have a friend who owns a hair supply store. He and his wife closed their stores until further notice from the government. Tattoo and piercing shops. I know someone who has a tattoo and piercing shop right here in my community up the street from my business. The first week that they gave notice that people are going to be having to close their businesses because of the possibility of contracting uh, this virus, the tattoo piercing shop closed immediately. Barber and hairstylist shops in my neighborhood as well. The hair stylist and the barber shops are in surrounding this area. They've shut down. They've been closed ever since the announcement. Karate schools. Now this touches home to me. I discontinued having physical classes with a group of students, and I'm doing my classes by way of messages and text messages, that is, and YouTube videos and so on. And it's challenging in and of itself as well, but it's the best that we can do, and I have other friends in the martial arts that are doing the same. Colleges and public schools, we already know that they've been closed down from assembly, and they're doing things as it relates to classes and tests and so forth, exams and quizzes, all of those types of things online. sporting events and athletes. Uh, we know no baseball, no football, no basketball, or any other sport where you have a crowd of individuals. Those have ceased. Religious services. Now, that cut deep with a lot of people. The inability to assemble and worship the Creator in your synagogue, your mosque, your church, your temple, and what have you. So that has bothered some people down to the core. Comedians and entertainers. There are many, many comedians that travel and have had schedules to travel the world and even the United States from state to state performing. All of that has ceased. No more crowds in bars, in clubs, in theaters, movie theaters included, where you have a group of people, period. So that has ceased. Weddings. Can you imagine not being able to marry that person that you love? So that's not happening. Swimming. We are about to enter the warmer weather this year. We're getting right at that precipice. And people can't cool off by swimming. And I believe that this is going to go right into the summer. So that's going to hurt a lot of people. Maybe not physically, but it's going to hurt a lot of people emotionally. The fact that they can't just get out and be free. You know, uh, casinos and gaming institutions. People can't go to the casinos and the bingo halls and so forth. So you can't do that either. These are all public activities, of course. Birthday parties included. Can't go and gather in some of these places that you rent out to include some hotel space and banquet rooms and so forth. You can't have your hotel banquet parties right now, birthday parties for your children. You have to be creative and do these things at home. And the last thing that I have on here, and there's many, many more, but these are all that came to my mind at the present. And if you know of some other things that people are losing out on, to include occupations and entertainment and so forth, please leave it in the comment section below. But vacation and traveling is another one that I had on the list. Isn't it something that you can't go and visit your family out of town and have that annual family reunion, or you can't go out of state and, or out of the country for the most part? Some people might be able to finagle it in some instances, but for the most part, people can't really travel. You can't go anywhere where there's a crowd of people. So I just wanted to point out several things that we are missing out on in as it relates to our freedoms. How do you feel losing not only your freedom but the ability to make money and to provide for yourself and your family? I know I've heard that some people have begun to receive stimulus checks, but it's a bit late and it's not even that much. Uh, Most people who are receiving stimulus checks have already lost 2 months of work and income. So how is that $1,200 or $2,000 or $3,000 in this stimulus package per person or family going to help you when you're already in the deficit? And I heard them talking about the president, that is, some revisiting maybe a second or third stimulus package only in America. They know the ramifications of this virus, and they know that the amount of money that they decided to allocate to the American people as it relates to giving them some form of relief financially to keep their life with some form of normalcy, if you will. They know it's not enough money. They knew that when they proposed it. So what are we going to do when the money runs out? What are we going to do uh, for those 2 or 3 months ahead of us? will the stimulus kick in again and it be adequate, or is it going to be just a drop in the bucket again, $2,000-3,000 per person in or a family? We are already living in a position, in a situation where we're actually devastated and probably don't even know it. Just because some people have a little money, maybe still working, some, and there are other individuals who may have just begun to receive their stimulus money, and there are people who are probably on disability or Social Security and retired and receiving a check from that. It might seem like you're doing okay, but I don't think we see the big picture. I believe that it is worse than what we actually can envision right now. But as I said in the early part of the video, make sure that you continue to love one another. Hold on and hold out. Be encouraged, be strong. Try not to get the cabin fever blues, if you will, and create things to do. These are the things that I did when I was a child. My brother and I, my family, when we were coming up, when we were in the house, there was no such thing as being bored. We found something to do. And anyone who can't find something to do right now under these circumstances and who cannot create something to do, you're just not trying hard enough. Don't let your video games be your only go-to. Don't let the internet be the only thing that you can go to. Start stimulating your mind. Start reading again. Start doing family activities within your home again. You'd be surprised how closer you will be as a family. This is Brother Teacher. I just wanted to share this with you today. And may Yahweh continue to bless all of us. He loves you, and I love you as well. So long.